Hey everybody, Matt Kins here, and I'm going to teach you how I make bread from myceliated grains. When you're growing mushrooms, the edible saprophytic mushrooms like oysters, reishis, shiitakes, stuff like that, one of the integral steps is to grow your spawn out onto some grain, and that's going to give it the nutrients it needs to then digest the sawdust or wood chips or logs or whatever you are planning on fruiting your mushrooms on. So, since you are using grain, you can make some bread. I've tried it. It was okay. It didn't really taste anything like mushrooms because it's been baked and mixed in with your yeast. But it's kind of cool, and I'm just experimenting with it, and you can too. So the first thing you need is some grain spawn. That's going to be the hardest thing for most people to get. I grow mine in these cool little deli containers with a filter patch on top. They're like 10 cents each, and it's just way easier than growing them in a jar, in your sterilization jar. I find you can do smaller amounts, and the grain colonizes a lot quicker in these. Plus, that seal is airtight seal, so you don't even need, if you have a flow hood or a still air box, you could just pour your grain from the jar into one of these as long as it's been cleaned out with sanitizer, and boom, baby, they're awesome. So, what I do is once the grain spawn is fully colonized, I throw it in the freezer overnight, and then I grind it up in a blender. I have a Vitamix, and I just grind it up into kind of a rough flour. You need a special attachment to get real flour from your Vitamix, but I find since I'm adding this in a smaller ratio, it's fine. Now, so that's just ground up myceliated grain spawn. Sort of smells mushroomy, just like grain spawn is supposed to. And then I just add this in substitute a cup of your regular flour. So I do 2 cups of the bread flour, 1 cup of myceliated grain. Now here's the thing, this is really wet because mushrooms are a lot of water, right? So you're going to have to cut back on your water for the recipe. And so I would just, almost probably by half. So here I've got that's a cup of water. I'll probably end up using only 3/4 of a cup or maybe even less. So 2 cups bread flour, 1 cup grain flour, about a teaspoon or a little more of salt, about 1.5 teaspoons of dry yeast, a little less than 3/4 cup of water. I made this recipe before just for a taste test. It tasted fine. Again, it didn't really taste like mushrooms in any way, but it was good. And you may gain some vitamins or minerals or nutrients from this. And I just have too much grain spawn right now that I can't put in fruiting bags on the sawdust, so I'm just having fun and experimenting with it. I'm also going to throw in some walnut, sunflower seeds, cranberries, flax seeds. I'm not crazy about these cranberries. They have sugar and sunflower oil in them, but live dangerously, am I right? So I'm going to bake this. I'll show you what it looks like when it rises, and then I'll show you the finished product. Okay, I did not take a video of the mixed dough before it had risen, sorry, but here's the mixed dough. It's risen. When you grind up the whole wheat berries in the Vitamix like that, you don't get like a super fine flour, so this is a little thicker and the bread's going to be a little denser than normal, but that's still nice and fluffy. It's a little sticky, and so I'm just going to put a little bit of wheat flour. This is just really this whole recipe, the only thing you need to know other than baking a regular bread is account for the extra water in the myceliated grains. So you're going to have to add a little less water and a little more flour in order to make your bread not super duper sticky. So we're going to bake this sucker for about 45 minutes and see what it looks like. And 45 minutes later, we got the final product. It's fresh out of the oven. Now, I'm not a baker. I really just learned about baking because I wanted to try some of my myceliated grains in a recipe, but this is good looking bread. It's super hot. Ouch. But yeah, it looks great. I added some extra flavors to this, some nuts and berries. I did a plain loaf with the myceliated grains. I didn't notice any mushroom taste. Perhaps some of the nutrients and the chemicals that the mushrooms produce in the grain spawn will have survived the baking process and can be used by your body. Perhaps not. So I don't really know, but it's a fun experiment to just try this stuff. So mush on, people.